Well, hi, Amanda. Thank you for joining me tonight. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Where are you physically right now?
I'm physically in an office at work. I'm not in my office. I don't actually have an office because we're reconstructing. Um, but it's a pretty cool fact. I'm in the old Capitol building of Colorado before Colorado was a state. So it's um, Golden, where my university is, I work at, is a territory, was the capital of the territory at the time. And so our main administration building is the old Capitol building.
Oh, that's cool. Well,
Yeah, it
enjoy it
has
while
a
you can.
right. Well, I mean, hopefully I'll stay in this area, but yeah, it's the biggest office actually. They just threw me in here for a time being, so I'm not
Uh,
complaining.
and how long have you lived in Colorado?
It just was 15 or 5 years, 15 days ago.
Oh,
So not that
okay.
I'm counting or anything, but
Yeah.
5 years is kind of a lot for me. I've never lived anywhere besides where I grew up for 5 years. So
So I was going to say you're an East Coaster. So where is home for you?
home is Baltimore for me. My mom doesn't live there anymore. She lives in Florida, so I sometimes call Florida home. But I'm a Baltimorean, true and true.
Okay.
So
Maryland crabs, the whole deal.
Maryland crabs, the whole deal, the accent, all of it comes out. When Jenny and I are together, sometimes we just get into it and you can hear it.
And you said this is now one of the longest places you've ever lived anywhere but for your childhood home.
But yeah, the longest, yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. So how did you get from Baltimore to St. Leo?
um, so I was gonna be a Gator. I had all these plans to go to UF since I was born. I was bought like a UF cheerleading costume, and it was like inbred in me that I was gonna be a Gator. And I went to Catholic school growing up, and they gave us this catalog that was like Catholic schools in every state and other places. And there was this one that was like 20 minutes from my grandparents' house in Tampa. And so my mom, and it was St. Leo. So we were like, oh, this will be our tester. So it'll be like my tester, like interview, admissions walkthrough. My mom made me wear a dress suit for my admissions. So you
Yes,
imagine
mom.
only human in that. In Florida heat, I mean, it was something I love. Because we didn't know any better, right? Like my mom went to college in Europe, so she didn't know about, and of course not then. Um, and when we went, I loved it. I thought it was so cool, and it was ironically the first time I ever saw a cow,
Oh,
because it's like very farmland. You've been to Dade
yeah,
City,
that's
Florida.
adorable. Yep.
Yes. And I loved it. And then we ended up going to Gainesville 2 days later, and I couldn't even figure out how to find the admissions building.
Mm.
And I just said to my mom, I don't want to go somewhere where I'm a number. I want to go somewhere where I actually think I can make a difference and I can continue to create change and social justice. That was something that was really big in my household. And St. Leo they like everywhere their values are, and I live that. So yeah, sometimes I wonder what would happen if I didn't make that decision right away, or if I tried other places. And I don't know.
Well, there's a lot of lessons in that, right? Like having
Mm-hmm.
options, doing preparation and homework, right? Going with your gut, and what feels like home. I mean, trying to figure out what your impact is going to be, and like what's the best environment that will lead you to success there. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot to unpack in that. And then, so what then? So you're at St. Leo. Had AST been there for very long?
No, so
Just
AST, I'd only been there for about a year.
okay. But
Um,
you were not a founding member, but you were there on the ground floor. Yeah.
yeah, I was like 3 classes in.
Okay.
Um, and my RA, who is their advisor, Michele, who I adore, she was so cute about like recruitment. I remember saying to her, I'm going to be in your sorority. And she was like, okay, honey, you should try them all. And I was like, I don't know why she's being so aloof about this, because we know I'm going to be an AST. Um, But yeah, at the time, Greek life was very different than it is now. It was still a lot of local organizations and figuring things out. And so I got to be a part of a lot of that. I got to be a part of founding the College Pan-Atlantic Association on the campus, and kind of creating that ground floor, which was really cool. And I think really set me up to love student affairs and to love working in that aspect. So
Well, that leads perfectly into my next question. So I'm just curious, so my husband's in student affairs, right? And I'm always curious about the paths that people take to get, in many cases, it's because of an undergraduate experience that they had. Was AST that experience, or was it that full college experience that took you down that higher education path?
yeah, I would say AST was the experience that made me love it, but my relevance came from being an RA.
Okay.
And I don't know if you can edit this out, AST headquarters, but I was a terrible RA. Like, I would never have hired myself or allowed myself to, because but I learned a lot from being an RA, and I think I was relatable, and that's sort of why they kept me, and put me in trickier situations and buildings. But it also provided me the experience. So when it came time to job search, I was able to find like a temporary job as a hall director at an institution, and then realize I'm kind of good at this. I thought about being a social worker and going to law school. And when it came time to figure out the next step, somebody said to me, you're really good at this. Maybe think about going into higher ed. And I was like, I don't know, maybe. And then going into higher ed, I realized that it absolutely encompasses all the things I love: the law, social working, helping people, social justice, creating change, all of those things. But I think what keeps me going is, even now, is being able to continually give back to the Greek community at pretty much every institution except for Dubai. I've been able to volunteer and to participate and to offer expertise, and it's been really fulfilling.
And that's great. And thank you for being an ambassador for AST on campuses where we don't have chapters. That's very meaningful. And thinking about that, so was that hall director job your first job after college?
No, so I tried to run away to Europe,
Okay.
and my mother made me come home because apparently that's not what you do after you get a graduate degree, or you get a degree from college. I don't know why, but that's what she said. So I was a nanny for about 4 or 5 months, for a family where the mom was like an interior designer and the dad was the vice president of Redken.
Okay.
So that was kind of cool. But I knew it wasn't like permanent, so I kept looking, and my cousin found this job at a small Methodist school in Florida, and said, hey, you should look into it, and the rest is history. And it was honestly one of the best times of my life, socially, with friends, but also like I learned a lot about being a professional. Like I had to really grow up, and it was interesting because I was only like a year or 2 years older than some of the students that I had to supervise or reprimand, or
Yeah. So did you take time, how much time did you take between your bachelor's and your master's?
I took a year off.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I actually worked full time while I got my master's, which is not common for a lot of people in student affairs. I thought it would give me a leg up in the world of residence life. I probably would do that differently. But.
And are you saying that because you're currently working on your doctorate now while you're working full time, perhaps?
I say that because I really wish I was smarter in both sense, but having someone pay for it. And I remember saying, because the institution that I worked at did not pay for me to go for my grad school, and I think I could have been different. But then, I mean, it all evens out in the end. And then now I think the same, but
yeah.
And it's interesting how things have changed. Like I started my PhD in 2016, so about 6 years after I finished my master's, and there's new language, there's new theories, there's just a lot of new thoughts that I took a lot of my PhD classes with some master's students, and they would say things and I was like, I don't remember learning that in my master's program, or I'd have to like go review theory that I haven't thought about in 6 years or so.
Well, it's been pretty impressive. We've had a number of council members who have come into the council room either beginning their doctorate or finishing their doctorate or just having been awarded their doctorate, even just in the last like probably 6 or 8 years, which to me says, yes, we can multitask and do two things at once. Yes, it is possible to hold a high level volunteer position in AST and have a job in real life and, pursue, a terminal degree. I mean, even with Catherine Anishko, I mean, went to law school. So, I mean, to me, that just sends a good sign for prospective volunteers that it has been done and it can be done. And that's something that, we encourage in the organization is that academic excellence as well. So I wish you well as you continue to work on that, and let's get her done, Amanda.
Get her done. My hope is that by the next convention, when you get introduced, it will be doctor.
Doctor. I love it.
Just for that 1 second.
Yes. I bet that'll feel really good.
But Tiffany and Teresa in the last council were super supportive. They especially just asking advice and saying, what do you suggest? And everyone's process is different, but to hear that like Tiffany's process, and completely a different field than what mine is, this is what she did and what she recommended. And then Teresa's is quite similar. And then the follow-up, like Teresa still follows up and says, where are you? Come on.
Yep.
And gets a little annoyed when I'm like, haven't done anything. And she's like, why? Which I need that.
So in that same vein, I struggle with people that talk about work-life balance. I don't think it's a 50-50 equation, but does work-life balance exist? I mean, how do you navigate that?
I don't think it exists. I think everything intertwines. And so those people who are able to leave work at work and whatever they're doing in different buckets, I applaud them, but it's not something that I can do. And so I have learned that really, I like to be active. And so I create priorities and I say like, okay, when can I do things? And try to make sure that I am meeting goals professionally, personally, like in personal organizations. But acknowledging that there might be times when like work, like right now, work is really busy because I'm creating an entire new employee onboarding program for our institution. And we're launching it in a week. And this is the, time when everyone's like, I want to know everything you're doing. And you're like, where have you been for the last 6 months? Yeah. Which is great. And so I part of what I do is let people know and say, hey, like, for example, I'm helping with the sorority advisory committee as the ex officio, and they needed some stuff for me. And I just, Kate's like, hey, did you get that email? And I was like, I did. And I'm getting to it. And then this is what's going on. And I can get it to you by this time. Does that work? And I think it lets them know that like haven't dropped this ball. It just has to fit into a certain time point. But one of the things that I've been like working with I do therapy. I think therapy is super important and helpful because it's just someone that I can talk to and throw ideas at, and they help me. And we mentioned like just creating non-negotiables. So one of my non-negotiable is that I go to the gym every day, or I do CrossFit. And as much as I can. And if I do move that CrossFit or I move that time I planned, like when can I make it up? Or, so I think that kind of helps just keeping a stable life and recognizing that there may be days where it's going to be real crazy.
Yeah.
And I think, oh, sorry.
No, I was going to say, I think creating, setting boundaries and kind of having a routine and some things that you commit to for yourself is really important. Have you found those habits carried over from pre-pandemic, or have you started new habits during pandemic?
Yeah. Most of them, I think most of them have carried over. The only thing I would say with, I think I may have mentioned this before, is because I am an extreme extrovert, this pandemic has been very tough on me. And I've seen my motivation drop a little bit and my like re-energizing. And it's been a little bit nicer now that I come back to work and I see some people, but not many. So I have been embracing my like inner introvert.
Mm.
So part of, especially when we were like very housebound, I was doing meditation and listening to like calming exercises and meditation exercises. So adding that. And then I think a new part of my routine is giving myself grace to say, this is not, this is the new normal, but you have to, like, we're creating change. And a lot of change has happened for me during the pandemic, not just with the pandemic. And um, I've got a new job. Like we just put an offer on a house. And so we're really going to buy a house. And so all these things that I'm like, okay. So I think giving grace and saying, hey, some things might fall, but don't let them fall so low that you forget about them.
Mm.
So, and I have a planner that every week I write my top 3 priorities. And for the last 2 weeks, it's been the same 3 priorities, which tells you that I might not be achieving them as quickly as I'd like, but I haven't forgotten about them. And so I think that's important.
So thinking about routines and self-care, and I know you like to hike, and is it kayaking or paddleboarding?
Paddleboarding.
Paddleboarding. Okay.
Paddleboarding.
Being outside in Colorado is a great place to be able to do that. And then I think about, our work on the Women's Wellness Initiative, and I think there's a lot of opportunity and possibility there. And I wonder, what speaks to you about the Women's Wellness Initiative? And I know you've had the opportunity to have hands-on service with Dress for Success.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe share a little bit about kind of how that made you feel when you were doing that service.
Yeah, I think the Women's Wellness Initiative, I was telling this to a collegiate one time. I feel like everything in this world is impacted by women. And so the Women's Wellness Initiative allows us to open up our ability to give back to the world. And so Dress for Success is a wonderful example. And I have done service in many ways, like philanthropy, helping them raise money, but also going to do like clothing sorting. And then through Junior League, so I volunteer for Junior League here in Denver. We also do Dress for Success. That's actually how I do a lot of it with Denver because it's a little harder to get in. And so they had like a career development session, and I was like, dude, I have a degree that is supposed to help you with that. So let me sign up for that. So it's really impactful to see that even like one suggestion or one conversation I can have with somebody could change their life and then could change others' lives. Because I think that if we're able to, even just if someone's able to find an outfit that they feel really comfortable in and they feel really happy, that pride and that beauty of spirit is able to then help them hopefully get a job, and that job can help, and it just like it's a snowball, like a beautiful snowball. So that, and I think that there's a lot of wonderful opportunities that we can continue forward. I'm really actually excited for girls who code. I work at a STEM institution, so I have learned a lot about science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. I probably couldn't do the mathematics part, but the rest I got. And I've seen just the benefits of getting young women involved in STEM work and STEM research. And I think that Girls Who Code is just an awesome way to get our young women involved and curious about things that maybe they've missed an opportunity on in other situations. So I'm really excited. I'm excited to see where we go after this too. I think we have a lot of wonderful resources, and I think the Women's Wellness Initiative, we can touch on health, and we can touch on financial health and all of those wonderful things that we have the opportunity to grow with.
Yeah, I thank you for that. And I think what's been really cool since the pandemic started has been watching Girls Who Code and some of the programming that they're doing. And I went to one of their early sessions. They talked about preparing for college and tearing down some of the myths, and trying to, add a little transparency to the process to help, young girls start thinking
Mm-hmm.
about what they need to do to be successful. And I thought, well, gosh, I had no idea that they did this type of programming. Maybe it's new, maybe it's not. But the idea that it's not just, you know, teaching girls how to code, but it's helping, teach them that skill, but also help them be successful as they enter college,
Mm-hmm.
and even beyond. And I thought, well, okay, that, yes, that is absolutely the right natural partner for us. And I agree, there's a lot more we can do there. I think there are a lot of other opportunities. So that's something I'm excited about and I'm looking forward to. And I think it kind of speaks to the times and where we are right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm thinking about too, this idea of philanthropy versus service.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you feel pretty strongly about this idea that, um, it's one thing to write a check and it's another thing to be hands on, but you can do both, obviously. Are there things, that you are, that you mentioned the junior league? Are there other organizations and things that you're involved in that kind of go in that philanthropy or service bucket?
Um, a lot of it is through junior league. So I did. I've always worked at institutions where the cool thing about working in higher ed is that higher ed also provides a lot of volunteer opportunities. So whether that is going to like Habitat for Humanity experiences, which I did a lot when I worked before in Dubai. Um, and then here at Mines, participating in some service activities. And one of my favorite ones that I have done, and hopefully they'll, with the pandemic aside, we'll be able to continue, is working with our students who come to campus who might not be ready to fully emerge into our STEM program. So they come, it's like a bridge program for about a month and a half in the summer. And part of that is we go to the Rocky Mountain Food Bank and we work there a couple of days and talk about, the importance of giving back. And um, I really enjoy that experience. And I won't say I kind of get a little annoyed because the food's like processed food and I'm like, how is this helping? But I think it's, the point is that we're being able to help process and give. And so that I enjoy. And then the junior league has been a really big help. I tried for a couple of years to find ways to volunteer on my own and it was very difficult. And so being able to participate in junior league and we have these events called like done in a days. So you're able to go somewhere for a day and that kind of opens the door and then you can continue to give back. And so I do a lot with homeless shelters and helping with like food stacks and I volunteered. Didn't call me, but I asked if you wanted someone to like help do census. I did that in college. I went around and helped with homeless census, and I said that I wouldn't mind doing that. And I like it because it takes a little bit of my college background of sociology and social work that I don't use all the time currently in my position, and I'm able to like interact with humans and continue to work with that.
I think that's great. And I think if you're all what we talk about in AST with service or philanthropy, it's not just about, serving AST's philanthropy, but if you are out in your community and you are an AST, right, you are an ambassador for the organization. And if you have, 3 or 4 friends and you volunteer at a food pantry, right, and you're all ASTs, that's still in the name of AST. And
Mm-hmm.
so I admire you for having those connections inside your community, right, and for making that impact there.
Thanks. Yeah.
And so that doesn't leave a lot of time, right? Your volunteer service, your
Yeah.
work, you know, your doctorate. I'm just curious, like what motivates you? Like what makes you get up in the morning?
Yeah. Um, well, I mean, I will say I've always been someone who's extremely, I don't sit still well. Um, I I really like to be active and So I think part of what motivates me is knowing that the goals I'm achieving is like seeing those be achieved, and then what's next. And now there's always being something about like a what's next. And I kind of set out like, I have these goals and I would like to achieve them, and then be able to also share to the next person. And I think that's also quite motivating, is to encourage others to be a part of whatever I'm a part of. And one of my strength finders is includer. It's not my highest, but it's pretty high up there. And it's so true, because I want everyone to be involved. I'm like, of course you should join. I try to get every single person I know. I'm like, you should come to this event, or you should be
I
part
thought
of.
you were director of recruitment or recruitment in your chapter. No.
No, I'm also a little awkward, so
Yeah, we all are in our own way.
I was not. They should have had me be.
Yeah.
But so I think being able to share what I enjoy is very moving for me. And then, I think what really motivates me to get up and to keep going is to know that like what I'm doing is important, because if it's not important to me, or if I don't think it's important, I'm not going to do it. And so like people count on me, and I don't want to let them down, and I don't let myself down. And so, yeah. And I think it's interesting, when we did emotional intelligence, one of the big comments was that I don't like put myself first. And so I've been really working on that. So that was something my therapist and I talked about. And so one of the new like things I've been doing motivating me is like, okay, like today, what am I going to do for me? Like, what can I do for me? And, or if maybe it's not today, like what can I look forward to? I think also helps a lot.
Huh. And do you have trouble switching off? Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah. I'm not a great sleeper. So I wear this really cool device that tells me how my sleeping's doing, because I sometimes it's awful. And it's a lot of it's because I can't switch off, because I'm already thinking about a paragraph I should write for my dissertation, or an email I need to send back to somebody. And so I luckily I have a partner who is the opposite of me in every possible way. And he goes to bed at 9 o'clock and like literally puts his head down and is asleep. So we'll get annoyed if I'm still working, or if I'm like typing something and it wakes him up. So it's been very helpful to have that balance, because he is like, turn off, try to stop. Or I just acknowledge it. Like there are days where I'm like, all right, it's 1 a.m. I'm not falling asleep. I'm just gonna get up and crank some stuff out, and hopefully I'll fall asleep. And
Yeah, so I was going to ask you, how do you mitigate that? Is it you keep a notepad next to your bed, or like you send yourself an email in the middle of the night? Like how do you get that stuff out of your brain so you can shut it down?
I have an iPad, and I like send myself I have a pencil, and so I can like write the note really quick. Sometimes I can't read what I'm writing, but and that's helpful. And there are times I just have to get up and do it. Or I actually listen to a book on tape. So and I listen to the same 7 books. I listen to Harry Potter, which is very weird, but for me is quite comforting. I know the story, so I don't really pay attention, and I just put it on and I can like listen to it, and it's sort of like meditation, but it's Harry Potter, which is very weird.
I love it. I think it's great.
And it really like it helps me sort of relax. I listen to the story. I know the story a little bit, and then I can find myself training my brain to like not think about school and things like that.
But you said you use a paper planner though, right?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is that largely how you stay organized? And like, do you have any productivity hacks or apps or things that you like to use?
No, I've tried everything that is recommended. There's this really cool one where like you have to set, it's like if you build a tree, and so you set it for a certain timer and a tree builds. And if you like use your computer, or I think it's your computer or your phone. I think it's on my phone, sorry. Before the tree is finished growing, it like kills the tree, and then I feel bad. But if the tree grows the company will donate $1 to trees or something.
Hmm.
I've never built a tree. So I don't know. They're not getting $1 from me. But I've just learned that I like to scratch things. I like paper. I even take notes by writing. So I write all of my notes, and then might go back. I've tried like the technology part. Even on my iPad, when I write notes, I'll come back in and I'll rewrite them, handwrite them. That's why I have the pencil. I think it's just part of how I learn and remember things. I have a really good memory, so I'm able to remember when certain things are and what I need to do. But the planner really helps me plan ahead.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I sometimes to annoy people because I am someone who's already thinking 4 weeks ahead. So if you want to make plans with me, I'm like, well, I'm available in October. And I think that can annoy some people who are like, what? That's so far. But that's just, I'm always thinking, pre-thinking, pre-planning. And I love that about AST though. I feel like we definitely plan ahead, and that's what's made this easy, not easy, but an easy ride of being able to be part of like the task managing is I know when our meetings are, I know when things are, and then I'm able to plan and that's a lot of the things I'm a part of. If I join something and it's not like that, then I'm like, you're driving me crazy and we're going to fix this. So.
So that then leads me to, are there things, as a professional that are tools or skills that you've learned through AST that you use professionally?
Yeah, I definitely would say the like the scheduling ahead and planning and AST taught me how to have crucial conversations. When I was a collegiate, I was president of my chapter during a time when, and I think it's a time in every collegiate chapter when they talk about nobody likes each other, and I'm like, it's just growing up. But having to have those conversations with women about dues and or behavior and all those tall honor council, which actually wasn't really formed yet. It was like forming when I was collegiate, and then being on national council. It's really interesting because we do strategic area focus and we do goal planning. And now in my current position, I just had to sit through an entire session for our office about that. And I was like, oh, I know how to do this. I got you. And so then everyone thinks I'm super smart and impressive. And I'm like, you should hear me bumble through AST stuff. But it's really been a great professional development because it's helped me with that. And then networking. AST has taught me that to find things in common. One of the things we all have in common is we're sisters and we share a ritual and we share values. And so it's something we can talk about and we can branch out. And that has helped me with other parts of my professional life.
Well, I love to hear that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. And then I think about, so you've had one full term on the council, plus you've had a lot of volunteer, so experience in AST, or have you had two full terms on the council? One or two?
One full term.
One full term. Yeah, this is your second. Okay. And a lot of volunteer experience with AST. Are there some things like over the past 2 years, specifically in your time on the council, that you look back and it's like, wow, that there was a turning point for me, or wow, that really shifted my perspective, or oh, I learned something about myself? Can you think about a time or point to a time where you had that shift maybe?
Yeah. It's hard to think of where we were. I felt like we did so much last council.
All the meetings just blend, kind of, locations blend together. It's like, were you in San Antonio? Or are we in Kansas City or Tampa?
Right. Nashville.
Yeah.
I feel like Nashville, I think yes. So one of the biggest part was when I was selected to be the ex officio for the first sorority advisory committee. It was sort of the first on my own kind of council experience I was given to help guide and lead the women and more guide the chair and help make sure our message was getting across. And I was a little nervous to be like, hey, can we do this? And then it really made me have to like trust myself. And at the time, like things in my personal life were real hectic and we're like, wasn't the best. And I was like, all right, I need to be honest about that. I think that part was a turning in helping me be a little bit more honest with like what my expectations I could have and what I could do, but also knowing that I needed to prove myself, and then it turning out to be awesome. Like it was a really good report. It did not be humble to say like they did a really good job, and I was a part of that. Felt really good, and it kind of boosted my confidence to be like, I can do this, because I know that our membership voted me in to do that, but this is a huge, in my opinion, a huge deal to be on council and to be in these positions and to make these decisions for so many women. And that it's a little intimidating. And so I think it needed that, like, you got this, you can do this, and you can do it well. And now I feel like I feel a little better about it.
Well, that speaks to two things that Tiffany shared in her kind of state of the sorority speech at convention: resilience and confidence. And I'm wondering, can you talk about how you handle failure or a roadblock?
Yeah, I don't handle it well, but it's something I'm aware of. I mean,
Yeah.
I would, another little Harry Potter quote I love Harry Potter. I'm not sure if you knew that. Super love Harry Potter. And I see what Hermione a lot. She's, failure is something that she's also she deals with a lot, and I can relate to that. And it's more that I have to acknowledge that failing happens, and I failed many times in my life, but learning from that failure, and instead of being really down. Or I had a supervisor one time that told me to build a bridge and get over it, and I thought that's a little cold, and then I was like, no, they're right? Like, so sit in the moment with it. What can I learn? And then build and just get over it. Don't forget, because that's not going to help learn. But so there have been times I've made mistakes, and I have said, okay, what can I learn from this? And try not to make that mistake again. And try not to dwell on it. Don't let it be one of the things that does keep me up at night. I don't have enough brain space for all of that.
Yeah, I made a very conscious decision not to ask you the "what keeps you up at night" question.
Yeah.
It's definitely because some people love that question, and but
we'd be here for years.
Well, I don't want to make any assumptions, but
Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that and being open about, yeah, I don't handle it well, and how do you recover, right? And how do you sit in that moment and make the space to learn a little bit from it? And so I appreciate that, and I think that's something goes back to giving yourself grace, giving others grace, right? Right now we're all in this thing together, and I think we're all thinking about not moving. We're thinking about moving forward and doing that in a way that lifts everybody up, right? And that can feel exhausting if you're already feeling burdened yourself, right? And so I agree with what Tiffany said about how resilience and confidence are so important, and something that we always have to keep working on, right? There's not you don't get to check the box and be like, okay, I'm resilient. So I appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing that.
Yeah. I think it's important to share. It's one of the things that I'm not going to hide about myself. And I think if I had more role models and more people in my life who said, oh yeah, I failed, but it's okay, just learn from it, and let's work through it, it might have made it easier for me to be able to fail and to accept it.
What have you learned about yourself as a leader in these last 2 years on the council?
I would definitely say, if we were to say what strong sense people have in the council, I think I am definitely a people builder. And so if we were to throw me into the wolves and be like, make relationships, I could do that in a heartbeat. I think that I realized pretty quickly on, I am really good at talking with our women and being able to hear what they're saying, listen, reflect, and then hopefully bring that back to council for change and for us to to grow and to also take what council is saying and sharing that with our membership. So building those relationships is something that is a leadership skill that I think I've really done well in. I also feel that the council has provided me the leadership of being able to think past the how and more at the what and the why, which has helped me professionally a lot. I currently serve as president of our administrative faculty council on campus, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And then I was like, no, we're not going to think about the how right now. We're going to think about why is this important? Why do we have this function? Why do we have this policy? Not like, how are we going to do it? And then we can get down to that. So I think council has provided me the strategic initiatives, growth, and ability to do that.
And when you are like performing peak performance, like Amanda is showing up in every possible way, what are you doing?
Usually I am planning some sort of social event where I am able to see people enjoy themselves. I think about like, I feel like the last time I like really peak performed was literally like 3 days before we went on COVID lockdown, as I call it. And it was for our administrative council, and we had a spring luncheon where we celebrate those who like employee of the year, all that stuff. And I got to plan the whole thing, and I themed it, and it was Johnny Appleseed Day, which is the weirdest thing, but everyone loved it. And I think it was just the ability to see things go well and people enjoy themselves. I thrive off others enjoying themselves and learning and being able to function and being able to like function in a group of happiness and succeed, and knowing that like, hey, I did that. That's part of it. So, and telling a couple of jokes here or there. I got to give some good Apple jokes, which I thought were like super good.
I love that's good. And then thinking about your professional career and your AST career, have you had mentors or sponsors along the way? And I guess what have you learned from them?
Yeah, I haven't as much in AST. I think I would love to have more people, and part of that I think is myself reaching out and looking for those who might be able to help or sponsor and mentor. Professionally, I have I have a great mentor at my current position, and he was my supervisor. And then as he moved up and I moved out, sort of in our departments, he's been a wonderful influence in my PhD and encouraging me to do it. I get daily text messages asking me if I've written anything. Usually I say no, and then I get a sad face. But I think the first thing is I for a while thought that your mentor maybe had to be a similar gender. And then I realized that doesn't have to be the case. And that this was a professional and a human and a wonderful person that I can learn a lot about. And I learned a lot about myself and how to showcase myself in a professional way, and ask for what I want and say no to things, which sometimes I forget how to do that. And he is a wonderful advocate. But he's also someone who I can bounce ideas off, and I know is in my corner, and I can say, well, what do you think about this and that? And he'll be super straight honest with me and say like, what are you doing? No, stop doing that. Or why are you shooting so low? Or, well, you have a lot of big dreams there. So I'm very grateful for him and all the things that he offers me, and I hope that I can also influence him when we talk. That's the other part too is I know it's not just me learning from him. There are times I share things with him and he's like, oh, I didn't think about that, or we're learning. So he actually is the one that shared the tree app with me.
Okay. Well, trying to be helpful. That's good.
Just trying. haven't last tree left yet.
Yeah. And I was recently asked this question about mentorship and do I have mentors and who have my mentors been? And it was interesting. I took this in kind of a personal inventory and looking through, and it's like, wow, a lot of my mentors have been men. And then I started thinking about, this idea that, having a culture in your office or in your organization where if a woman is made to feel other or unwelcome or is being talked down to, that it's not just that woman's responsibility to speak up and correct the issue, that it's everyone else in the room,
Mm-hmm.
including the men, their responsibility to hold their colleagues, male or female, or any of their colleagues responsible. And so I think women having male mentors is helpful in both ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't just limit myself to seeking out a female mentor. Um, but on the other hand, I think there's some benefits to that too.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it is so important to have that diverse personal board of directors, right, that you can call on at different points in your career. And I think AST, and you've alluded to a number of people in the organization that have influenced you in one way or the other. I think that's a great kind of intangible value add that we bring, that not just the network, but the relationships and the coaching and the confidence building and having crucial conversations, being able to practice tough stuff in a safe space and when you need it in a professional sense, like you've done it already.
Yeah. I think it's super helpful also just to have, like, I know that there are certain sisters I can talk to about different topics. And but there's a sister that we check in pretty daily, and a lot of it's more about health related. So like, hey, how's your running going? How's workout going? How are you feeling today? I told her that, for 3 days I ate dry oats because I thought that's what my meal plan said. And I was like, oh, you put water in those? All right. Actually, I knew that, Adam didn't. But yeah, I think, sometimes I feel like, and then also I've been trying to be a mentor to other sisters. And so there are a couple collegiates that I work with that I've just created a relationship with. And actually, two of them aren't even collegiates anymore. They've graduated. And they'll call and they'll ask questions. And it's not always about AST related. It's about, hey, like, how do I do my resume? Or, I want to be in higher ed. How do I get into that? And I'm like, oh, I could tell you for days what to do.
Yeah, I love that. So speaking of all this advice that you're giving to college women, recent graduates, is there, looking back, when you started college, your 18-year-old self, okay, what would you tell your 18-year-old self if you could?
Don't dye your hair orange. That was a bad idea.
But pink is
I
okay.
say that, but I pink. No, usually I like a pumpkin. I had like orange hair and like a green shirt. It was awful. Yeah. I think that this is just a blip in time, and that there will be moments that will seem like is so important at the time, and at the time recognize that they are important, but know that in 5, 10, kind of going on 15 years now, it's not important. It was just a blip in the time. And I think back about like this one incident where I was president and there was like a tall honor situation, and I'm being like, this is awful. I'm like so emotional. And now I look back and I'm like, I'm friends with those women. Like, I don't think they even think about it. If they do, it's again a blip in the time. And so it was important to sit in that moment and to learn, but to don't let it be the only defining moment. That there are relationships and things get better, and yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. I love that.
Yeah.
So before we end, a couple rapid fire questions for you.
Okay.
So last book you read for pleasure that wasn't Harry Potter?
All right, are you ready for this? The biography of Ulysses S. Grant by Ron Chenwell.
Excellent. Okay. Was that to
You weren't seeing that
procrastinate?
coming, were you?
No, I wasn't. Was that to procrastinate writing your dissertation?
Absolutely was.
Good.
And I learned so much about him. I will tell you all about it when I see you in Indianapolis.
Okay, good. And also, I know you're always listening to Harry Potter. Do you listen to podcasts?
I do, yeah. I love podcasts.
What's the podcast that you like regularly listen to, or would you recommend? Is it about
Uh,
Harry Potter?
no, I don't. You should find some. No, I really, oh gosh. I don't know if people are gonna like be like, she's weird. I listen to a serial killer podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And my favorite podcast actually is more of an occult podcast called The Last Podcast to the Left.
Okay.
So they do different things about like cults, sometimes haunted things. I don't really like those as much. And then like serial killers, which is just real fascinating. I just think it's fascinating. And
Well, I would recommend, if you haven't read the book, I'll Be Gone in the Dark. And it's about serial killer in California and the woman who researched for years and did podcasts and blog posts, and posthumously a book was published that she had written by her husband, and later the case was actually solved. So she never lived to see it. So yeah, I'll Be Gone in the Dark, and there's a on HBO, I think, like a limited documentary on her writing the book and interviews and things that she did. So definitely recommend.
I'll have to listen to that. My other favorite one is called Small Town Murder, and it's about these murders that happen in small towns, and it just makes me laugh because they make fun of the towns, which is the best part. The murder part, I'm like, all right, I'm bored with that. Just make fun of the towns. So.
And then last one, when the world opens back up for travel, what is on your wish list? Where do you want to go?
I want to go to Australia. So it's the only continent I have not been to yet. And so I got to mark that off my list. And I just have a really good friend who lives there. So I want to see some kangaroos and some koala bears and whatever other things people do. I don't want to see spiders. I've made it real clear they all need to leave when I get there.
Spiders and murder hornets are not permitted.
Yeah, and snakes, they all can go. Just, yeah, so that would be great. But honestly, I actually really miss my family.
Yeah.
And so it's hard when you live far from them. And this is about the time that I'm back in Maryland with my family. For just our holiday that we do. And so it's going to be hard to not have that. So.
Yeah.
And I miss crabs.
And the crabs. Yes. Good. Well, I'm glad that we had the chance to do this, Amanda. It does not make up for being able to see each other in person. But we had such a good, strong response to Coffee with the Council that we did after convention. I was trying to figure out a way that we could kind of share our stories and introduce ourselves to the membership. So I appreciate you being willing to do this.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for asking. It was fun.